Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association and presented to you by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We are really excited for our show today. We have our friend Ashley Piche with us from Denver. Welcome, Ashley. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for being on the show. So, shall we start with a prayer, please?
Great.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Joseph, pray for us. Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Amen. It's actually kind of a big time in the church. We had St. Patrick's Day on Friday. I myself had the privilege of being in New York City with the parade going by with my family. It was an unforgettable day, and today, of course, is Saint Joseph's Day, which is one of the really important feast days in the church's calendar. And of course, we're right in the middle of Lent, this important season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So, Ashley, I'm just so delighted to share this time with you today during a special time in each of our lives and in our spiritual lives in particular. So, Ashley, you are the executive director of Creatio, and I want everybody to get to know that organization a little bit. The website is creatio.org. The mission is to guide all people to encounter the beauty of creation and the Creator through service to the poor, mission trips, outdoor adventure, and care for creation. What a beautiful vision. How long have you been doing that, Ashley?
So I've been with Creatio for about 2 years, actually. Next month it'll be 2 years. And it was a leap of faith for me to join the team at Creatio. Actually, I'm a new convert, so I converted to Catholicism 3 years ago. So 1 year before I joined to lead this little apostolate. And it's been an incredible gift in my life, and it's been wonderful to work with people who are really focused on being a welcome invitation to the church for young people today in a way that doesn't really exist and in the way that is really needed.
Well, congratulations on your work anniversary, and I think that's wonderful. Let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us where you're from, what your childhood was like, anything you want to share about your early life.
Sure. So I am from Maryland. I'm from the East Coast, and spent my whole life on the East Coast. So went to school in New England and then came back down and lived in DC for about 10 years before moving out to Colorado 9 years ago. So we are definitely transplants here in Denver, but love it. And yeah, and would say you know, I spent a lot of time over the past couple of years thinking about my own journey to my faith into the church. And it really does start with my childhood, which is, yeah, it's been really interesting to see how grace has been present in my life before I even was aware of it. And so
Well, share with us
I
a little bit about that. What was it like when you were young, when you were first getting to know the Lord?
Sure. So I did not grow up with religion, but I did. And within my family, I had parents who really prioritized education and natural virtues. So my father came from a pretty poor background, so work ethic was really influential in his own life, and education was influential in his own life, and in changing the situation for himself. And then my mother came from a military background, so we learned a lot and saw great examples of my parents about fortitude and temperance and work ethic and those things. But didn't have any formal religion growing up. And I would say that when suffering entered my life, as it does everyone's life as a child and into young adulthood, uh, for me it was primarily in the form of a pretty troubled relationship with my father, who suffered from mental illness, and then navigating the impact that had on my family, myself and my family. I really clung to virtue and achievement really as a marker of success, and my own worth. And so, that works to a point. But it gets harder and harder to ignore kind of the creeping stress and anxiety that comes from an identity that's not rooted in Christ, right?
Mm.
And so, I could kind of ignore the stress and anxiety, and was getting plenty of positive reinforcement from the world that I was okay, right? So I was very tied into achievement. I was an All-American athlete in high school, and then went to a prestigious college, and had an academic and successful athletic career in college as well. And then had found success in my career after that. And so had all the markers of, everything is doing all right, up until a certain point when I couldn't really ignore it anymore. And I would say that is so Creatio is an apostolate that's focused on reaching young adults. And it really was the first couple of years after college when I first recognized that, yeah, that there's something more, something deeper that I'm supposed to be, that I am yearning for and need to have some curiosity about to find. And that was so I married my college sweetheart. We met in college. And the first few years after college, he deployed. He was an infantry officer in the Marines. And that was 2006 to 2009. He deployed to like right outside of Fallujah and to Ramadi, kind of front lines on the ground. And we knew that it was super dangerous. We knew that the teams that he was replacing were not bringing all their men back. I think that was the first big kind of personal period of suffering in my life that I couldn't control. So it was completely out of my control. I couldn't educate my way or like work hard, work my way out of it. And so for the first time felt really the physical ramifications of stress and anxiety and not knowing how to suffer well, right? The meaning of suffering, how to suffer well, what it means to live and to die. And so that was the first time I felt that there was, there's something more to learn here. And then I would say, so I have twins. I have 9-year-old twins. They were born in 2013. They were born super early. So they were born at 26 weeks and our daughter was under 2 pounds when she was born and our son was just at 2 pounds. And there was no guarantee they would survive. And they spent a long time in the NICU and it was very, it was another situation I could not control, right? Cared very deeply about, couldn't control. And I met a nurse in the NICU who just radiated joy. She was our favorite nurse, and I got to meet her and know more about her. And she shared that she was a NICU nurse because she had left her career when her son died. She lost a 6-year-old son. He was on a bike and got hit by a car. She became a NICU nurse after that because she wanted to help other families that were struggling with children who were sick and dying. And that was an enigma to me because I was going through this really tough time, and then here's this person who had suffered, but seemingly had suffered well, right? And was very joyful and had peace in her life that I didn't have access to. And so had questions about that. And then would say that I mentioned I converted about 3 years ago. So in 2019, 2 years leading up to that, my father died by suicide in 2019, the year that I converted. The 2 years before his death were very difficult. He was reaching out to me a lot. So I had a lot of questions about suffering and forgiveness and love. And I think that was the first time when I look back that grace really broke through in a meaningful, like powerful way that I could recognize when I was able to forgive my father. And then felt peace after that. And so that was another indication that there's something more here. There's something to this Christianity thing that I should look into. So really found the faith through questions around suffering primarily, and the meaning of it, how to do it well, and started reading philosophy. And I was married in the Catholic Church. My husband was born Catholic and was a cradle Catholic, but wasn't practicing. His family wasn't practicing, neither was he. So we didn't really go to church, but that was, the first place I looked when I started having deeper questions, because I had some familiarity with the Catholic Church, and we happened to live right next to a church where there was a priest who is our age, so younger, and very engaging, very inviting, and went through RCIA. My husband came with me, and we both he had his reversion, and I had kind of my conversion to the faith through that. And so that set our whole family on this conversion, which has been really beautiful. And I had the gift of being baptized as an adult, and that led to more kind of breakthrough periods of peace and awareness after that have pushed me to leave my career and join this little apostolate that's focused on evangelization, so we can be, that open invitation to other young adults, and has pushed me to really think about how to prioritize the right things in my life and really find that identity in Christ that was missing before.
Wow, Ashley, what a summary, and just thank you so much for being so raw and honest and trusting me and our audience with that story. What a journey it's been. Certainly one of the whole thing. Struggles, achievements, victories. The whole thing. Just I'm kind of speechless because it was just so moving, and especially today being the 20th anniversary of the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Thank you to your husband for his service. And it sounds like you just have a beautiful family, and you have a great life that you're building, one of service and joy, the same joy that the NICU nurse shared with you, and now you're sharing it with others. So, boy, that's really cool. It's really incredible. So, what was your sport when you were young? I'm just curious. You mentioned you were a
Yeah.
top athlete. I'm just curious.
So I ran track and field
Nice.
through high school and college, and my husband did as well. So that's how we met. We were on the track team together at Brown University.
Who's faster?
It depends on the distance, but I think he's probably faster at every distance at this point. So, yeah.
My daughter's 4, and with the speed at which she runs around our living room, I think she might follow your footsteps to
Yeah.
Brown. Maybe, who knows? So that's cool. Very good. So you went to Brown, and then you went to Georgetown. I think you got your MBA there. Am I right?
That's right. Yep.
And post education, what'd you get into after that, professionally?
So yeah. So I always have been interested in education. I mentioned it was a really important part of my family story. So both my father and my mother, but particularly my father, who was he grew up outside of Camden, New Jersey, and ended up going to Northwestern University, and that was a huge anomaly coming from his background, and he really instilled the knowledge that educational opportunities can really be something that it can be transformative for people who don't have access to other ways out of poverty in our country. So always knew I wanted to work in education and was always very mission driven about it. And so after undergrad, I worked as a education researcher for 5 years at Georgetown University, studying response to intervention and language acquisition. So very technical, like neuroscience work that I did, and then recognized that my heart really does draw me towards service, and so wanted to be on the ground, right? Like this research we were doing was amazing, but I couldn't see how it really connected to the children who were in DC, who I knew were struggling. So left that role and started working for charter schools. So one of my first jobs in DC was as part of a turnaround team for the lowest performing charter school in DC at the time, in Southeast DC. It was an all boys school, 100% African American, 100% boys, in the poorest neighborhood in the city. And I came in as with a team that was tasked with turning around performance there, and so really learned a lot about what it means to be on mission, to be in service of others through that role. Learned about how difficult it actually is, how many different factors play into a family's ability to gain footing and gain traction, build a positive culture when coming from generational experiences where you just haven't found that. And so kind of laid my heart on the line during that time I was at that school, and we made great progress. So we ended up making the most growth the first year that I was there on that turnaround team.
Just real quick, when you say the most growth, what was the measure of growth? I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, academic growth. So it was math and reading in terms of the test scores that the students had at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and the progress that they were showing in that short amount of time. And they were still, multiple grade levels behind, but they had caught up in that time that we were working with them, which was great. So we saw some success there, but still really ran headfirst into the politics of education as well. And so through that experience, kind of, quote unquote, on the ground, became interested in kind of systems level educational solutions for serving all students. And next worked with a network of charter schools called KIP in DC. And then from there, moved to Colorado and worked with a network of charter schools here in Colorado as well, with the SST. Denver School of Science and Technology, and then also worked at the Colorado State Department of Education to serve the lowest performing school districts in the state. And so have always been focused on really this turnaround work and working with poorer populations of students that don't always have access to high quality education. And that was always has been very mission driven. I loved that work. I still do. And always say that one day when I retire, I will retire into teaching because I really, the relationships that you can build with the students on that one-on-one basis are really precious. And yeah, I had a 15-year career in education before I recognized, along with my own conversion, that education is super important, but you can't educate your way into heaven or educate your way out of suffering. And I, experienced that obviously personally in my own life. And so my own personal calling kind of shifted to share, truth, beauty and goodness with my students, as opposed to just math and science and reading. And so, left my career to focus on evangelization. And that was difficult, but it's been beautiful.
Actually, I'm very impressed by the results you were able to achieve in the first school that you turned around in DC. What tactics and methods did you employ that led to such great success?
It was a lot of, well, first thing is to know where we are and then set the bar, right? So to get kind of into the details, we did a lot of assessing where our students were and trying to figure out why they were there, right? And then on a daily basis, supporting teachers to always know where the students were, always check for understanding so they knew where they were, and then plan for the next day based on where the students were the day before. So we really broke down the traditional, you have a curriculum outline for, the whole year, and you kind of like march through it in a traditional setting. And we broke it down to like a daily assessment and reassessment of what the needs were, and then came the next day ready to meet those needs because they were changing so frequently, and they were it's such high need academically. And then in a school like the one that I was working, there are other factors as well. So it's, the children are coming to school, not having eaten, so you have to make sure that they are eating, they are loved, we're talking a lot about character building. We're doing a lot of kind of team and community building, bringing parents in a lot and trying to gain trust there so they can trust us with their children, and we build, the full kind of relationship all the way around the student to help them succeed. So there's a lot of community work, a lot of heartbreak and loving, and trying to really, as a school, there's only so much you can do, but like plug in all of the holes that we could around these students in this community, so that we could actually focus on the academics in the classroom and do that on like a daily basis based on what the needs were. So it was very high intensity, and took everything out of everyone who was working in the school at the time. But it was also beautiful because we did see a lot of growth in the students, and there's always amazing stories and really sad stories that come out of working with communities of people who are struggling so immensely, but learned a lot about life, I think, in that in that time I was there.
Actually, I'm curious. A lot of times when a leader comes into a new situation, and just the culture she encounters is, just an atrophied one. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
people have become accustomed to mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
Morale is low. You kind of wonder if it's even worth it. That kind of despair and that kind of like giving up that you see in people, that can be very discouraging, and in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of cases too, very challenging for a leader to turn that culture around. I'm not saying that's what was going on at the school, but it sounds like at least
Mm-hmm.
kind of the low performance was going on, and I'm guessing that was linked to morale issues and
Mm-hmm.
belief issues.
Mm-hmm.
How did you overcome perhaps like the initial shock that people probably saw that you were going to do things differently, you were going to have
Yeah.
expectations, you were going to drive higher performance? I'm guessing you probably faced a little bit of resistance in the beginning.
That's right. Yes, for sure. And it's interesting because that's actually one of the what you described in terms of change management or turnaround leadership is what I ended up studying after having gone through that experience. And that's why I ended up at the State Department doing that work, right? So helping leaders of school districts think through how you come into a situation where you have a certain culture, a certain, track record of execution, and you want to change that, and you want to change it quickly. Like, how do you do that? So that's, yes, that is, I love that type of work. I think it's actually, which is interesting, because I think it's very difficult work. I know it's very difficult work, but it seems to be the work that I love the most and that I'm cut out to do. So I'm always gravitate towards situations where like a culture change is needed, or change management is the work that's necessary. So I would say in that one instance, it was kind of like my first introduction to doing that type of work without really knowing what it was or having a concept of what I was taking on. The thing that I relied on the most was, one, breaking it down to the basics. So, what are the one or two things we have to do, right? And can we get rid of everything else, right? So if we, in a situation, and in this case, in a school where everything is broken, you can spin your wheels trying to do everything and then not really hit the one or two big priorities that will actually move you from the situation from where you are to where you need to go. And so the first thing was, and it actually led to what I explained, which is, the thing we need to do is we need to move these students academically, so they can start to see that they have the capability to do this. We can start to see that, and the whole staff can see that, and we can believe it, and then we can continue to move forward. And then, so in order to do that one thing, what are the other kind of factors that are keeping us from focusing on that? And how do we knock those off one by one, right? So just staying very, very focused and very prioritized, knowing that, again, there are so many things that can be distractions, and a lot of work that has to be done, good work that has to be done, but that prioritization is just so important. And then just being an example. So I think it's really imperative in situations like that to lead by example, where it's, the leaders are also on the front lines, also the ones who are, getting kicked and punched by the kids when they have a tantrum, or, and the ones who are coming in at 6 a.m. and leaving at, midnight because, there's a parent who's angry and there's work that we have to do or whatever. But leading by example and showing that, that the belief that this work is possible is strong in myself, even when it's not apparent, right? So having, I think, a leader to look up to that can maintain that strength and vision on where we're trying to go is super important. And those two things were I think what I relied on during that time. And I was with a team as well of other leaders, and that was helpful to have other people who were motivated by the right things, right? So they were there for the right reasons. That when we felt that, things we weren't sure what was going to happen the next day, we could come together, kind of get that strength and be a united front in front of the team, which was helpful. So having that, having people to rely on, being willing to ask for help within the leadership circle, having that united kind of strong front that's really vision centric was helpful. And then just, breaking it down to the basics, where it's we're only here to do these one or two things. Let's figure out what is in our way and move it out. So those are kind of lessons that I learned through experience, working in lower performing schools, and in turnaround schools. And then, had to really love thinking through those things and helping leaders actually who are in that situation, try to cut through all the fog to see the important thing and keep their eyes on the vision, because that's the most important thing.
Actually, it's such a relatable story too. I mean, I've read every John Maxwell book, and a lot of John Maxwell's stories that he reflects on, kind of like you just did. They'll start off with him as a Christian pastor going into a church that was struggling, and how he turned it around, by finding the influencer, and washing his dishes with him and talking about, what was going on, just getting your hands dirty, and also that modeling, that setting the example that you touched on a couple times. That seems to be a critical element too, and that's applicable in any leadership role. Whether it's in your company or your office or your financial firm, or wherever our audience members are listening today. It's a very relatable story. It's interesting. So actually, I mean, I don't want to overstate it. This is my view. It seems like we have some concerns about education in our country, and the data seems to support that. I don't want to go too far, but I think most
Yeah.
people probably agree with that.
Hmm.
As somebody who has worked in this space for so long and so deep as you have, how would you, I guess, diagnose, where we're at right now, and what solutions would you suggest on a global or strategic level, to drive some better outcomes? In my own
Hmm.
family, we've chosen Catholic schools, and we're very satisfied with those. We're blessed to have the opportunity to do that. Not everybody can.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, it'd be nice if everybody had access to a solution that worked well for their family and that provided their children a great chance to thrive. But that's not the case across the board by any means. So, what do you think? I mean, what would be your solution if you were able to kind of wave your magic wand today?
Sure. So I've worked with and for traditional public schools, public charter schools, private schools, and I've spent some time actually homeschooling my own children, and so have uh, some experience and context around the different you know types of schooling that we have in our country today. And I do think that, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me when you ask that question is, well, two things actually. One, I think school choice is something that is super important, and so putting the power closer to the children, right? So at the parent level, where parents are the decision makers for their students' education, they will be the best informed to make the right decisions for their students. And it is an ideal situation when parents have choices that allow them to match an educational program to their child's needs, and those choices are readily available, right? So I think that's an important topic to dive into, an important political kind of realm to look at. And I think, again, along the same lines of kind of putting education closer to the student, so it can focus on the student's needs as opposed to the adults that are in the system. I think a movement towards more locally kind of quote unquote owned or like parent driven schooling environments is a good move as well. I think COVID may have helped a little bit with that. We saw an uptick in parents who are homeschooling and parents who are looking for different educational opportunities for their students, um, because traditional public school is not available for a period of time, and I think that opened the door to some creativity there. And yeah, I think what happens when you get into um, our traditional school system is that there are just so many interests along the way, that can really muddy the waters in terms of what the focus is, at a particular school, right? So you have a lot of layers of bureaucracy between a traditional public school teacher and the federal government, and all of those layers have a say in what we're doing and how we do it. Um, and it crowds out the voice of the parents. It really crowds out the voice of the community in terms of crafting the educational experience that we want for our kids. So I do think, yeah, that's the conversation I'm interested in. And how do we give more power to local communities, give more power to parents to make decisions, and then try to solve the problem of there's a disparity between um, parents based on primarily socioeconomic status in terms of how many choices or options they have, right, for their student. Um, so I think that's something to focus on, something I've always been passionate about. And there's lots of different solutions, popular ones in the past have been like vouchers where the money follows the student, it doesn't follow the school. I just think thinking more creatively about how we can give more access to educational opportunities for all students, and then you know shift the power from from bureaucratic agencies to parents and communities.
Yeah, the risk of oversimplifying a complex question, it seems like the tension is, do you have kind of a one size fits all standardized offering to every family in America, or do you have a myriad of options, and perhaps options we haven't even thought of that'll emerge in the coming years, and the parents make the decision as to what's
Mm-hmm.
going to work well for their kids. It might be the traditional public school system, which perhaps a lot of people are going to select. Might be something else. But the
Mhm.
point is that the parents decide,
Yeah,
and that the resources that make those options possible should also be in the parents' control.
that's
Is
right.
that a fair summary? Would you say?
Yes, yeah, it is. And just faith that and knowledge that if we were to, get rid of the public school system as we currently know it, we would come up with solutions and they would look more like community-based solutions for for educating our students because we need that to happen, right? And so yeah, it's just an encouragement to get to have a little bit of that power and yeah, the resources as well. Decision making power shifted to be closer to the students because that's probably going to increase or improve outcomes for those students in particular.
That's awesome, actually. And one question I wanted to ask you because I think this will be useful to our audience, and you touched on it a little bit already, just with your life story, but also working in a tough sector, in charter schools and turning around
Hmm.
struggling schools, etc. For any leader when you're trying to initiate change at that level of difficulty and at that scale, man, I bet there were just tough days, right? I mean, days where you're like, man, I'm exhausted. I just this isn't working out. You know what I mean? I need to find strength somewhere. I guess for those of us that work in comparable environments, maybe not as difficult as ones you saw from what you say, but what advice or what suggestions would you give to members of our association and our broader listening audience as a leader when you just have one of those days where you feel like throwing in the towel? I mean, what would Ashley do in that type of situation to get off the mat and keep fighting?
Yeah. So Ashley today is different than Ashley, 20 years ago, primarily because of my own conversion. And something that I really, yeah, feel very fortunate to have be a part of my life is I've prioritized recently in the past year or two my own prayer life and building that in structured ways. And so I just spent a lot of time thinking about what my strengths and weaknesses are in terms of uh, how I prioritize and the kind of structures I need to do things consistently to actually build habit. And I've actually been able to build daily mass into my life currently, which is completely unheard of. Like so when I when I converted 3 years ago, and I was like, okay, every Sunday, that's gonna be like every Sunday for the rest of my life. Like that seems like a lot. I don't know if I can do it. That seemed like a huge leap. And now yeah, I love going to mass. I crave it, and it does provide that stability and that escape for me in a world where yeah, any given day I can feel completely overwhelmed with the task at hand. um, and and I needed it in the form. Well, I prefer it in the form of daily mass because I know that I need like a place to be at a time in order to do it consistently, right? So it's just been I feel very fortunate to have all of the resources and the community that are that come along with the Catholic Church, especially here in Denver. We have a great community, which I just feel super blessed where I can, yeah, there's daily mass on the hour, every hour, within a 15-mile radius of me, which is not the norm everywhere. But um, yeah, just recognizing that it's not all on me, that I can lean on others, particularly God, to provide that space to maintain my own peace and calm to attack the day. And in the end, another thing that's really helped me is this meditation that I still do all the time because it's I feel like it's going to be a lifelong struggle for me is around yeah, just letting go, right? Recognizing that it's not for you to control. You're playing a role, following God's will, and you have to let go, right? And so the book is not going to be written by you. You are a character, and it's your job to play a role. And so that mindset helps me a lot. Um, and I still, yeah, you know, it'll help me later on today because I'll have to navigate some conflict with the team or something, and it's like okay, like I can play this role and this is all I can do, and then I can move from here without taking on too much of the stress and anxiety that comes with trying to control things that really are out of our control.
Actually, I want to get your opinion on something too, and I think you've said a couple of things that suggest this. I mean, perhaps one of the challenges you've overcome in your life, or working to overcome perhaps, is as a high achiever from your youth, both academically and athletically in other areas. Perhaps you weren't you're the first one to, I guess, ask for help. You know what I mean, or turn
Mhm.
to others. Or feel like you didn't have it all under control. But it sounds like you made a lot of progress in that. I talk to a lot of leaders, who privately will share with me. They'll say, look, if I'm the one, admitting that I don't know have the answers, or if I'm always leaning on somebody else, get input, etc. Why am I the leader? I mean, I'm supposed to be the one, who people can lean on, and rely on and
Right.
can count on. I mean, I can't be shown those kind of vulnerabilities all the time. But any really accomplished leader, a good leader, a good man or woman, with high virtue, high integrity, who's accomplished a lot, they'll say the opposite. They'll say, no, no, no. I mean, you can't project that. You can't try to put that out there. You can never live up to that. That's not the way to go. But people struggle with this a lot. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
guess, where do you find
Hmm.
the balance between being a leader with authority and credibility and someone who
Hmm.
can be depended on, but still being a genuine person who doesn't always have all the answers, doesn't always know what to do, and has bad days, and has things they struggle with. I mean, how do you feather that needle, I guess, and strike that balance?
Yeah, so that actually has been a major, I think, lesson of mine more recently, that, as you mentioned, I'm still working through. Um, I would say, and it's funny, I was talking to my husband about this morning. I would describe last year as having like burned that out of me, burn the facade that I can, hold it together through all scenarios and be this fearless leader, not rely on other people. Um, yeah, it really did. So with my current role with Creatio, I'm executive director. We're a small nonprofit. Half of our revenue comes through fundraising, half comes through leading the experiences that we do for young adults. And and fundraising was totally new to me. We and yeah, as a director on like a super small team, you're also just doing everything, right? So leading a business uh, totally is something that's new to me as well. I've always kind of like played a role in that in leadership roles. Um, so everything from, yeah, I don't know, taking out the trash to balancing the budget to, everything was new to me. And then we have missionaries that work for us, or that work with us as partners. And they are typically young adults, like just out of college, that are, in addition to looking to you for like traditional, leadership and advice and all of that at their first job, they're looking to you for spiritual leadership as well, right? And I'm a new Catholic, so I I when I started, I had been a Catholic for a year and was figuring this all out myself as well. um and so I learned very quickly that I couldn't do all of those things, or be all things to all people within the organization in particular, um and had to first be honest with myself about that and be at peace with that, and then be okay showing that vulnerability to my team, because they need to see, yeah, what a human looks like when they're in a leadership role and trying to do it with virtue, right, and trying to do it with integrity, really. um and so, yeah, I think last year I actually went through a lot of that, where it's like, oh yeah, this is very difficult for me. And I've had open and honest conversations with the team, more open and honest than I ever have in any other role. Um, and we've grown to, they know better than how to support me, and I know better how to support them. And I think they actually they have more faith in my ability to lead, or in my leadership, um, because they understand me. They know who I am. They know my integrity, and they trust that my heart is in the right spot. They know that my heart is in the right spot, right? And that's all that really matters. So it's been, yeah, that's been something that I've had to really um, dive deeply into. I think I've always been very empathetic, and I've always led in like a collaborative way, and so always, have had some integrity around leadership and all that. But yeah, I would say it wasn't until this past year where I really felt like I had hit some breaking points, and really needed to rely on the team to pull me through, as opposed to like pulling myself up and leading from the front. So
Awesome. And a
it's
final
been,
question about balance, and then I want to dive deep on Creatio. So, Ashley, I can tell that your family is so important to you, your marriage, your children, etc. And every parent that we have on the program, I mean, we've got more than a few parents, praise be to God. A question I'm always intrigued by is, how you balance, very high professional performance like you've enjoyed. You've had a great run, and you're doing great work at Grazio now. How do you balance that with being a good wife, being a good mother to your children, your extended family?
Mhm.
A lot of people say it's very difficult to do that. Like if I want to do great work, something's got to give, and it might be time with my kids. Sometimes you hear that out in the culture a lot. There's people that don't even want to have
Mhm.
families because they say, "Oh, it might hold my career back." I mean, come on, like I want to
Right.
be a vice president or something. I mean, you've clearly I'm sure you're still working on it just like all of us are, but you're
Mhm.
doing that. I mean, you're
Yeah.
you're, you're doing great professional work, and you have a beautiful family and beautiful children you're raising. Any tips for our listeners that are trying to figure out how to strike that balance well and do great work while being a great family member?
Yeah. I think it's well, I will speak as a mother. I also think there's differences between mothers and fathers, right? And the role that you play in the family and with the kids and all that. But so our kids go to a pretty traditional Catholic school here in Denver. And there aren't very many mothers who are working full time within our community or leading organizations. Um, and and that's something I've thought a lot about, right? Because I yes, family is priority for sure, um, and I've thought a lot about how to integrate these two kind of things that just are with myself at least that I I need and want to be on mission, right? And for me, that has always played out within my career or the job that I'm doing. And I need and want to be, a good wife and mother to my children and have um, yeah, and have a healthy relationship with God. And I know that when I'm on mission, I'm a better mother and wife. And I know that when I'm, have a great relationship with God and fulfilling my role as a mother and wife, that I am better on mission. And I know that I need those two things. That's not necessarily the case with everyone or for everyone, but that's something I feel very strongly about. And actually the switch in my career so I think one thing that came to mind first when you're talking was um, being willing to really make sacrifices for one, knowing what you want to prioritize and how you want to prioritize the things, and then being willing to make the tough decisions to really stick to that, right? So right before COVID, actually, January, before that March when COVID hit, I was leading a, a public charter school network. We had 15 schools here in Denver, and and was super busy, right? Was chief of staff, was the person who was in charge of fighting fires across the entire network, and had 1,000 employees and all this. So it was a lot. But recognized that my son was not doing well in school in kindergarten, and made the very tough decision to, for the first time in my career, take a semester off and homeschool the kids. And that was totally out of, I mean, that was nothing I'd ever considered. I didn't have any other female friends who um, weren't career minded and very career focused. So didn't really have an example to go on that, but knew that it was, yeah, my priority was my family. So I had to do this. And I learned a lot through that. Um, Maybe the first thing was that, 6 months a year is not like, that is fine. I've done really great work, and I was able to. My company wanted me back as soon as I was ready, and wanted me to be a healthy mother so that they could like have me back in a healthy way. Yeah. So it actually wasn't as big of a break as it felt before I did it. Um, and that kind of taught me a lesson that it's like, oh, I actually do have some flexibility and agency here in terms of defining what a career looks like for me. And if I have to know my value and my worth, and be willing to have faith that other people will see that. And also know that I have to fulfill my role as a mother and wife in order to give anything to my career as well. So um that also happened when I had the kids when I was pregnant, and I left during a time that was super busy and came back, and the team was like, oh, we didn't catch fire. We're okay. It's like, oh, that's great. So just recognizing that there is, yeah, that you always have some agency and flexibility, um, and even though it may not seem like it, and recognize that, again, I'm working in jobs where that flexibility may be more available than other types of careers or jobs. But I think there's always a third way for sure, and always a way to make sure that those priorities are met. And yeah, so try to stay flexible. And then I think now I'm doing a lot of integration, so just integrating my family into the work that I'm doing. So I'm doing very mission driven work and pulling my family into the mission. My kids will walk the Camino de Santiago with me this year, and that's
Wow.
actually a work trip for me, but I'm bringing them along, which will be great. And the team is always at my house. I work remotely and from the office, and they are supportive of having a working mother on the team, and appreciate the diversity that brings to our work. So working on integration has been a big thing for me in terms of both career choice and how I define what work and success actually looks like at work.
Well, brilliant answer, and kudos to the governors of Creatio and you as the CEO for having that kind of culture. I mean, it sounds like a great place to work, and I'm sure that's very aligned with your mission. So, and let's explore Creatio a little bit more, because the journey you've outlined, Ashley, has brought you here. You're about to
Mhm.
celebrate 2 years as executive director at Creatio. We described the mission earlier. Why don't you just talk to us a little bit more about I guess where Creatio has been, a brief summary of its history, what you're
Sure.
doing now, and what you'd like this important organization to become in the future.
Yeah. So Creatio started about 10 years ago and has experienced very organic growth since then. So we started. It was at first really some brothers of a local community here, a community of consecrated um, religious, that recognized that they could go to a college campus. They started at CU Boulder, invite some students, not necessarily Catholics, but just students on a backpacking trip or on a mission trip to a beautiful place, and create an environment that allowed them push them to go deeper, essentially, to ask the deeper questions in life, and recognize that this draw to the outdoors was a place to catch all of these young people who were leaving, not looking to religion for the answers, leaving churches, but finding beauty and some sense of beauty and truth and goodness in the outdoors. That's especially true of here, the culture in Colorado. For sure when Creatio started, but it's now, and we've seen in the past couple of years, like, been a huge uptick in this interest in this kind of attraction to beauty that we all kind of share. And so these brothers recognized that they could take these young people to a beautiful location, have them disconnect from the world, right? So no cell phone service. It's just you and creation and these other people around a campfire, and we're having deeper conversations and kind of steering you to look deeper than everyday life, right? So you feel this attraction to the beauty of creation. Can you see how that's connected to the creator, right? And do you know what that means for your own life and the relationship you're drawn to? And they had a lot of success in the first couple of years of really running these transformational experiences for young adults. That was sort of kind of like the spark to their own conversion, right? So once you have that spark, that curiosity of like, oh, there is a singular truth, and now I've like awakened um my curiosity around actually finding it, right? And so the Creatio experiences are really designed to be like that spark to like kind of wake you up from all that society is kind of bombarding young people with today, and send them on a journey to actually pursue the truth, with beauty as that door, that kind of that open invitation to come and start the journey. So we we are a small Catholic apostolate now. We've grown from one or two people to we have about anywhere between like 8 and 12 people on staff at one time. The majority of our staff are missionaries. They fundraise their full salary, and they're young people between usually 22 and 30 that are just really wanting to reach out to their peers and bring them into this deeper conversion, um, uh, and really bring the Catholic worldview to this younger generation today, because it's not they're not getting it in any other way, right? Like young people are not coming to the church for answers again, and they're looking to these other places, and so we really see ourselves as competing with these other options. So competing with the yoga retreat, or competing with the wherever else young people are going to look for answers, to say, hey, we are a bunch of young people who are a mix of cradle Catholics and converts, who are welcoming and want to have this conversation with you. Like, come on a backpacking trip with us. Um, we'll learn about beauty and suffering and creation. It's connection to the Creator, and we'll go from there. So it really is. Right now, Creatio is really positioned to be this other kind of view of the Catholic Church, that is welcoming to people who wouldn't necessarily look to the Catholic Church otherwise.
Very exciting. And describe a few of the destinations that Creatio experiences will take people.
Yeah, so we pick our destinations pretty well. We discern where we go for sure, because we want to make sure that we are setting the stage for the right type of environment that will push people deeper. So we definitely have environments that are wild, like overwhelmingly beautiful, and we select places that really allow people to disconnect. So a lot of silence and disconnection, and then we stay close to creation. So we lead pilgrimages, we lead backpacking trips and camping trips, we lead mission trips, and they are all very, like, when we do a pilgrimage, for instance, so we do Camino de Santiago, but when we do that, we're walking the whole way, we're carrying our stuff the whole way. It's like a very traditional pilgrimage that allows you to really disconnect and be connected to the land. We do a pilgrimage here in the United States called Chimayo in New Mexico, and we stay at the houses of hosts that we've developed relationships with that are local families. And we travel to Chimayo, which is this holy site in New Mexico, which is beautiful. But we do it by foot, and we cross over a mountain pass, and we are welcomed. It's difficult, and we're welcomed by the families along the way. So it's a very personal, real experience of pilgrimage. So you get that sense of moving through life as a pilgrim. For our mission trips, right now we're leading mission trips out of Costa Rica. We're working really closely with a small community there on the Western Peninsula that's pretty isolated, but helping them with a couple of projects around mitigation of risk of flooding during the flooding season, and kind of building community out there, and potentially a little bit of ecotourism, helping them build a bit of a economy there so that the people have work to do. And that's just a beautiful location. It's very remote, beautiful community, beautiful location that we work very deeply with. So it doesn't feel like other mission trips where you're kind of where you can be, shipped off to a spot, stay for a week, and then leave. And then it really is something that we cultivate year round in terms of relationship. And then we lead backpacking trips. So our primary location there is here in the Colorado Rockies, and so we don't have to go very far to find real beauty in nature here. And we have a couple permits to here in the Colorado Rockies, where we invite groups to come out and we'll do all kinds of trips. So we lead a lot of high school retreats actually out here. We have a lot of requests for like bachelor parties where they're like, oh, we actually want to have a meaningful experience together. So we do a lot of men's retreats as well here in the backpacking in Colorado. And then we have open enrollment. We have a lot of custom trips as well. So we work with a wide range of people, Catholics and non-Catholics alike, and can tailor our content really to the group, but always with the intent of kind of getting them into an environment where they can go deeper in their own conversion, with a community of people who's just really interested in inviting people into that.
I love the idea of the bachelor party. So,
Yeah.
single and engaged guys, if you're listening, forget about Las Vegas or whatever you think about doing. Go on a Creatio trip and have that deep dive with your brothers and your friends. I think that would be awesome. That's such a cool
Yeah.
concept. So
Yeah.
actually, it sounds like personal conversion and awakening. Something not unlike you described it in your own life earlier is
Mhm.
part of the deliverable of a Creatio experience. If you feel like there's just something missing in your life, you're not finding the depth, the meaning, the purpose that you're seeking. Maybe Creatio is a good opportunity to discover that.
That's right. Yeah. And it is, um, we have a lot of testimonials, which is really, I mean, and we talk a lot about how we measure success of an experience, right? So obviously there's the practicals, like the safety, like we are guides, are actual outdoor guides, and we have permits and all of that. So we're running these experiences and we can track our metrics in that space in terms of, successful experiences, in terms of safety outcomes and things like that. So that's very easy, but really what we're here to do is what you mentioned, which is that, yeah, have it be a retreat where, people can actually feel that transcendence. They have a transformative experience, and then we build community around that afterwards. So testimonials are really important for us. I mentioned we have grown organically, so we don't have we don't do any marketing really. We don't have any dollars that flow to a large marketing campaign or like a social media campaign or anything like that. All of our growth has been through referral, and word of mouth, which has been really incredible. And we have a strong group of supporters that really see what we're doing, understand what we're doing, and see the fruits of that, and recognize that it's something the Catholic Church needs today in terms of just a way to reach out to this younger generation of people who is still has the same drive to look for answers, but, are uh, not being encouraged to look, necessarily in the right direction, right? So, yeah, we've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of people that have had really transformative experiences with us, and are sharing that with their friends.
And I want to ask about that, particularly. I mean, for those in our audience that are intrigued by Creatio, talk to us a little bit about the people that are supporting you. Why would Creatio be a good choice for a charitable investment in an environment where there's a lot of great Catholic stuff going on? I mean, it's difficult
Mhm.
to choose sometimes. Why do you think Creatio stands apart, as a particularly attractive option for somebody that wants to direct their faith-based Catholic giving?
Yeah. I think we are, well, I know that we are positioned to meet a certain demographic of people, right? So, there are young fallen away Catholics and non-Catholics who like myself, may through their own journey come to find the Catholic Church, in a certain way without necessarily, the Catholic Church like moving to reach them, right? So, in my own case, yeah, we just happened to move next to a Catholic church, which is why we went to to RCIA at that one spot. And you know, had some connections through my husband and all that, but, I would have found it really incredible. I mean, we moved to Colorado 9 years ago because we were drawn to the beauty of the mountains. And there was something there for me, and would have been incredible to, find someone else who could talk to me about that and actually connect it to truth, right? And say, hey, this is what you're actually looking for. This is why you feel peace when you're in the mountains. Um, this is what we see in God's creation and what it actually means, and that would have been super helpful for me. And I would not have gone if somebody invited me to a Bible study. I would not have gone. If someone invited me to go to church with them, I would not have gone. I had all kinds of, um, uh, you know, I guess misconceptions, but, yeah, thoughts about what the Catholic Church was and was not, and it primarily for me was just a bunch of rules, right? But it was, yeah, I could have used someone or an organization in my life that was sending young people out with an invitation to a hike, um, with no strings attached. But hey, I like to do this for this reason. Why do you think you like to do this? That's great. Let's talk about this. Let's continue to connect. So we really are, uh, kind of on the front lines of evangelization, where we are reaching out to those young people, and we see our mission space as really 18 to 35, or, like post college to pre marriage or pre vocation is really our sweet spot, where these people are making really important life decisions right now. They're asking a lot of the important questions. There are not a lot of places for them to go, where we can create an environment for them to feel comfortable, to ask those questions and be supported to like look in the right direction for those answers. So we have a lot of supporters that have grandkids or children who are either fallen away Catholics or were never Catholic and are similar to me and would never go to a Bible study, never look to the church for answers necessarily, but would go on a backpacking trip or would walk the Camino, and because they know that there's some meaning there, but could use a little bit of the nudge to go a little bit deeper, and could just use the welcome invitation from other Catholics who are approachable and and just want to just really interested in the conversion process, right? So wanting to chat.
Actually, as Creatio's leader, you know, when you develop these resources that you seek, and the velocity that you're on right now, continues over a 5 or 10 year arc, and you have a lot more capacity to further your mission. I mean, what would be the benefit of that? I guess with more money in the bank, what would Creatio do to redouble the impact of its mission?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that we could actually start to compete with these other options that people are looking towards. So we already have. So if you compare us to like an Outward Bound or an REI, other secular outdoor organizations, what we offer is significantly deeper. It's tied to truth, and it's cheaper because we do fundraise half of our revenue, and which means that it's more accessible to more people, and it's just as high quality. We go through the same training that those outdoor guides go through, and hold ourselves to a high bar there. We could actually start to compete with secular organizations who are catching these young people who are looking to the outdoors for answers, and provide a solution that actually will save them, as opposed to push them further away from truth. So that's really the next step for us. I mentioned we don't do much outreach or anything like that. It really is just word of mouth referral, which means that most of our participants are still Catholic or fallen away Catholic, and we really want to push into that secular space to try to catch more people, and support would really allow us to do that.
Well, for what it's worth, I think it's a brilliant concept, and I'm not surprised you're enjoying great success. Ashley, it's so great to feel your energy and feel your enthusiasm for this project. This is surely where God wants you to be right now, and I'm so grateful to you for answering his call. And Creatio will be in our prayers here at the program, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to join you for one of these trips sometime in the future. If any of our audience would like to continue the conversation with you, Ashley, unfortunately we're at the end of our time. What's the best way to reach out to you? Should they just go to your website, give you a call, send you an email? Or would that be appropriate?
Yeah, email is ashley@creatio, creatio.org. So you can email me directly, that'd be great. And then our website is www.creatio.org as well. So you can head to our website and you can always email us through that as well and check out what we have there. And yeah, we'd just love to connect with anyone who resonates with our mission in any way. We're always looking for partners, and and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and about our work.
Well, it's been a delight. You're most welcome, and happy Easter to you and your family. Thanks for being on the show. This has been the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by Catholic Finance Association, presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We've been talking with Ashley Piche from Creatio, the executive director, coming up on our 2-year anniversary. Our organization is doing great things. I encourage everyone in the audience to check it out. Thanks so much. God bless. We'll see you next time on the Faith and Finance Forum.